Board meeting of the DeSoto Area School District, Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the Middle High School LMC. Roll call, please. Gary?
Jess?
Yep.
Barry, yes. Kirk?
Yes.
Brent?
Yep.
Jeff?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Doris? Ryan?
Yes.
And Kevin?
Doris is joining us virtually.
Okay.
Is he up there?
Not yet, no. You're not.
All right. Okay, proof of giving public notice, please, Lindsay.
The meeting was publicized by posting on the school doors, banks, and post offices in DeSoto, Ferryville, Genoa, and Stoddard, Pronto and DeSoto, Ferryville Cheese Store in Ferryville, and Red Mound Store on September 18, 2020, printed in the broadcaster on the same date and broadcast over WVRQ radio.
Thank you. Additions and corrections to the agenda.
The agenda includes an additional item. That item is, let's see, number 712, the COVID-19 school plan, and 713, I believe the cross-country course was not on the original agenda.
Okay. Then with those additions, could I ask for a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Kirk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Were there any people that wish to submit public comments?
We did not receive any public comments by 3:30 today, so there are none.
Okay, thank you. Committee and other reports?
We did not have any committee reports.
So then our first item of business is to approve the receipts and expenditures. So you get an in-service video from Kickapoo. Did they actually make something?
The in-service video, all the districts in Vernon County supported a speaker that we were all going to go to Kickapoo, as we did 2 years ago, and listen to the speaker. When that was no longer possible to do, the speaker recorded an opening welcome to the school year, and we all shared in that cost, which was significantly less than if we would have gone to Kickapoo. So we have distributed that out to the principals to share with staff.
Is there any other questions on receipts and expenditures?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Jess makes a motion that we approve the receipts and expenditures as presented. Seconded by Ryan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is to approve the minutes dated August 17th, 2020 and September 2nd, 2020. Pretty good with those?
Make a motion.
Okay. Jess makes a motion to approve the minutes. Seconded by Brent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Resignations, transfers, and approval of volunteers. Have any?
Yes, we do. In your
Yeah,
packet.
I saw the resignation of this for sure.
Nikki Eggy, who has done an excellent job for us as the cheer and dance team advisor, has made a decision to, for personal reasons, not carry on those responsibilities this year. So we thank her very much for her service, for the competition opportunities the dance team had, and hope that we can find someone else who's as dedicated to continuing the program for us in the winter season if we have an opportunity for performances and competitions.
Ask for a motion to approve that resignation. Motion by Gary, seconded by Brent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Good to see you, Darius. Motion carries.
Good to
And his eye came in after he said opposed, so it may sound to the
No.
public, there's a slight delay.
We'll just make him sound
But
like
that's very nice, Nikki. I'll be
Make
very
it a
appreciative to
contrarian.
know that it was a delayed response and you don't want her to leave. So we'll look at it that way.
There you go. Okay, our next item of business is donations. We have some very nice ones.
We certainly do. I am just amazed at the generosity of people who care about this district. We see it in volunteer efforts. We see it in donations of materials and supplies and equipment. And we see it in financial donations. And we received two very, very, very generous donations, one from Tom and Karen Wakefield, and the other from the Lafarge Free Methodist Church in Lafarge. And between those two entities, those completely offset the remaining meal balances of over $4,000 for our food service program, giving such tremendous relief to families from last year who were not able to pay for their meal balances up through March 17th. After March 17th, when school closure occurred, the USDA picked up the cost for meals as they have done for this school year through December 31st. So these are really balances that remain from last year. So a tremendous gift to the families and to the school district to not have to use other general education funds to offset those costs. So we're so appreciative. And then Derek, if it's possible, Derek may wish to speak to the water bottle donations.
Yeah, we had a nice donation from lots of different businesses, and I'm sure it's in your board packet. And the DeFlorian family kind of got the ball rolling and helped us get water bottles for every kid. So that was a nice thing they did this week.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate you sharing that. How absolutely wonderful. Prairie View's PTO, as you may know, made the similar type of donation. So all of their students have water bottles that can be filled and drank from all day long because we aren't using the water fountains as a source of drinking water. And the DeFlorians, Joshua and Rachel, along with many families in the Stoddard family area and some businesses got together and did the same thing for the Stoddard kids. So we're just truly appreciative. And those would be our donations.
Really, really nice. Yes. Okay, well, we need a motion to accept the donations. Motion by Kirk, seconded by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yep. Thank you very, very much. Fund 80.
There are currently no Fund 80 requests this month.
I got a nice picture of the trap house and everything up at Retreat. They'll be coming soon, but they'll have it functioning. I think this weekend is this weekend. The fair or next weekend?
This week.
They'll have it functioning then. Looks really nice. Anyway, our next item is item 7.6, the athletic spectator recommendation.
Well, we have Brandon Erke, our athletic director, with us tonight virtually, and Brandon is going to speak to the items on the agenda. One is related to athletic spectator recommendation, and the other one is when spectators normally come, there is a ticket cost to watching those games, and he has a recommendation for that as well. So welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. First, I want to thank all of you for being so understanding and working with us throughout this process. Mrs. Grounding, if I miss anything along the way, feel free to jump in and help me out here. But between myself and Mrs. Grounding and the other administrators, we spent a lot of time coming up with what the conference believes is a good plan and something we can do to keep our student athletes in the safest possible opportunities that we can give them. And we've had a lot of discussions and a lot of meetings, and at the last athletic director meeting, we thought it was important that superintendents have a discussion about spectators at sports. I don't know if you've watched our volleyball games, but our kids are doing an extraordinary job. In the cross-country meets I've been to, the volleyball games we've hosted, the social distancing, the respect for masks, the respect that our kids have for their opponents and one another, and they kind of understand that their actions and their choices are going to have an impact on future opportunities. Because they've done such a good job and continue to do what we've asked and expect, the ADs wanted the superintendents to have a chat and see what they thought about allowing fans into our contest. So Mrs. Grounding can jump in and talk about her end of things if she wants a little bit, but long story short, the recommendations that I have and I would ask you to consider would be for football, which is starting Friday, to allow 4 fans. Each athlete is allowed 4 guests. And then starting October 1, we would allow 4 fans at cross-country meets and 2 fans for volleyball. If you would like me to get into more specifics as what that looks like, I can do that. I can tell you that our plan with football is we have a spreadsheet created. That spreadsheet is shared with all of the athletic directors in our conference. And what I would do is I would be in touch with Mr. Wick, and he would have his players choose 4 guests for a home game. So for the home game, I would request that the opposing school put the 4 names down. We would set up a home area to check in where people normally would go. And then our visitors side, I would have them park in the middle school parking lot, walk down the hill, and go enter the track by the bottom by the bus garage. We would then have people with the list of names, the person would be responsible for stating their name and the player they're there for, and we would either highlight or check them off as a way to get into the game. It would look the same for volleyball and cross country. I think that parents are a huge part of children growing up, and you've been with them on their journey for all of these years, and we believe that it's important that these people get an opportunity to attend the events. We would obviously be pushing proper social distancing. We would have face masks available for those that might need them. If you've watched our volleyball games so far we've hosted, we have multiple opportunities to use hand sanitizer, social distancing upon the team. So I think our plan is good, and I think that if you approve this, I think that adding parents and spectators to the events is going to just be our next step moving forward. I guess, do you have questions, or Mrs. Grounding, did I miss anything on that front?
Doing good there, Brandon.
Does anybody have any questions about kind of what we would do moving forward with fans? Okay, and then I guess my final recommendation would be, and this was voted on by conference ADs, and they've all went to their boards. The last group is tonight, but you know, it generally costs the $4 to $5 to get into an event, and after discussions we've had, you know, we're encouraging trying to have a safe environment here. You know, parents for volleyball and cross country have now missed a part of the season due to no fans allowed at the game. So the ADs again brought this forward to the superintendents to talk about, and my recommendation would be that we do not charge people to come into the game. So, you know, parents are going to be there, they're going to sign in, but there will be no money exchanging hands. And, you know, the fact that, like I said, with volleyball and cross country, there's games left, but we're not in the same boat as football where the season is still in front of them. So that is my recommendation. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Sounds good, Brandon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep, that's all I got for right now. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for working so hard at it. We need a motion.
We do need a motion.
How about a
and
motion
second
to,
for-
motion and a second to approve the recommendations of our athletic director. So Jeff Long makes the motion and Ryan seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again.
We'll cover for both then, both of those. And then do you want to move up the football
Just
player
like-
consideration, as long as Brandon's here and is Ev available, Dwayne? Do you want to
Sure.
keep the
sure.
athletics all
Yep, might as
together?
well. Yep.
Brandon and Ev,
Yep.
if you are available right now, we'll switch right to you because it makes sense to continue on with the athletic area. I know you have some handouts for the board. There are 2 handouts in the packets. One is a PowerPoint that it looks like got put together by the 2 of you. And then we have some other information on different 8-player conference alignment. So go right ahead.
Have you go ahead. I'll pick up at the end here.
Okay, thanks for letting us come in here. This kind of got, you know, when we found the deadlines and stuff after communicating with WIA, we kind of had to do some talking quick between the 2 of us and then the team and all the parties kind of involved here with where we're at. I'll go through the presentation here. So we got what we could from multiple places that had already been through this process. You know, our situation this year is we have the lowest numbers that I've had since I've been here for 18 years. That's both levels, middle school and high school. So if we're thinking of making a change, now is probably the time to do it. In 2022, the change would occur. And I'll go through all the information here on the slide. So I'm going to try to share my screen here, and I don't know if it'll come up where that's at. So I'll try to get it.
We all have the.
All right, is it on there?
Oh, there.
It is now.
Oh, there. Okay.
Okay, and I'll go full screen so it's a little bigger here. And I believe you guys all have this, right,
Yeah,
too,
we have
in
it.
front of you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
in case I
Have
screw
a
up.
copy.
Screw up somewhere here. So I got to get to the right slide even here. So all right. So, you know, we're just putting this together here so we can see everybody. Here's kind of the timeline that's been given to us with the WIA. They made it very clear that there were no budging on any of the guidelines due to COVID and due to the spring football. So we're kind of stuck with what they got. So September 21st will be tonight. This will be like kind of the initial information session. And then the 15th, we have to have an application to the WIA for conference realignment if we choose to leave our current conference. November would be when we would probably act on that. And then December 1st is the state deadline for 2022. So this season, next season will both be 11-man. And then in 2022 would be a 8-man season. Here's kind of what's happening right now with us. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Our enrollment school-wise is going down, but also our participation is going down. So if you look at the middle column, last year we had 25 kids on our roster, but the last 3 games of the year we had to suit up 19 players for the final 3 games. And then this year we have 21 on a current roster, but we have 15 current healthy, and with our current situation going on, it's 3 of those kids are also freshmen. So right now we have 12 kids that are able to play that are not freshmen. And then the last bullet, middle school has been under 20 players the last 2 seasons as well, and that's 3 grades, 6 through 8. The conference situation, 3 schools left us last year to go 8-man. And by declaring by December 1st, they would place us in a conference, and we'll go over that here at the end. But 8-man again wouldn't take place until 2022. We're the smallest school playing 11-man. That was based on last year's enrollment. We're smaller this year. Some of these schools are bigger now, so it's we're smaller than that even. One of the schools on our list that's in our conference, Ithaca, has had talks the last 3 years with Weston about co-opting, which would bump their enrollment and then obviously give them more players. Here's where we're at this year. As you can see, we have 7 sophomores, but the troubling numbers are the 9th grade and the 6th grade, where there's only 3 current players from those grades, and I have there that they're going to be on the same team 3 years from now. So that would give us 6 kids between 2 grades, which would put us in an unfavorable position to field the 11-man team, and definitely not a JV at that with those numbers. That's if all these kids stick it out. As you know, as kids get older, they find other things to do, other interests, and might just not like it anymore. Here's their list of boys. Now, we obviously will open it up to girls to play. We're just kind of in time pinch. But if you look at these 2, the pre-K and the 1st grade, we have 9 boys in the total district in those 2 grades. It'd be great if we had 9 boys that would play every year. We can't count on all these kids playing. Can't even count on half of them playing. So if 1 out of 9 plays, we got 2 in those 2 grades. That's not good for us down the road. Here's kind of how 8-man or the state works it. It's based on a 3-year enrollment, 200 or less. So if you're 200 enrollment, you are ineligible for the playoffs, which we would never be in danger of that. But it kind of prevents bigger schools from wanting to go to 8-man. If they are unsuccessful in 11-man, they just want to go there to try to win games and all that kind of stuff. They are unable to go to the playoffs. Here's a little information. There's 39. There are a couple more than that now, but this was the count the WIA gave me today. Get to the next one here, maybe. All right. What benefits and drawbacks? 8-man benefit, obviously, be more competitive. We'd be roster size, would be schools that are in our similar situation and enrollments. We would be able to safely play varsity and JV, cutting down the number of players that we have going 2 games a week. So sometimes we have sophomores that start both ways in varsity, then they have to get back and go play Monday, which the WIA has mentioned that they may be looking at quarter restrictions with the concussion protocols and things like that, similar to basketball. So that, let's say a kid would get 5 football quarters in a week, we would be in trouble. We would not have a JV. Safety, we won't have to play freshmen and sophomores who aren't ready. Now, sometimes we got kids that are ready, but, that's not an every year thing. Some local rivalries be restored. We would be – the WI is kind of waiting for domino to fall with this 8-man thing. And, if we were to make the move, I think some other schools in our conference would follow to eliminate some of that long travel. And we would be playoff state tournament eligible in our first year at 2022, which is why we're not looking at it for next year, because we would be ineligible for the playoffs in the first year. Some of the drawbacks, obviously, it's not 11-man football, so there's going to be some resistance to change. That's not how we used to do it. That's not what we played, that kind of stuff, and I get that because I've been playing middle school football, high school football. I played college football, and now I've been a coach here for 18 years, so I know it's not the same. Narrowing the field, and then 3 less kids out there at one time. All right, other factors. So the WFCA has an all-star game. Our kids would have an increased chance of playing in that all-star game because how they do the all-star game, they do D4 through D7, and they do D3 through D1. So instead of competing with 200 schools for a roster spot on that thing, we'd be competing with there's 39. They split that in half for North and South, so you're looking at under 20 schools to get kids on there, which would be nice. We've had a few kids in the past that participated in that. It's a great experience. Enrollment caps, like I said earlier, if it gets big enough, they said they want 64 teams. They'll go to 2 divisions, but right now there's only 1 division of 8-man. But 16 teams make the playoffs. Elimination of Division 7. I'm a district rep for the Coaches Association of Wisconsin. And that gets brought up every year, the elimination of Division 7, once there's enough 8-man teams. So if they eliminate Division 7, all the playoff teams will be split into 6 pods instead of 7. So, we'd be taking trips to Eau Claire Regis or Darlington, Mineral Point, much larger schools that, definitely would have numbers advantage over us. And the big one would be practice squads. So the 8-man, we'd be able to split kids. We'd be able to have kids on the practice against. So tonight, for example, we had 15 kids that practiced tonight. We had 11 on the one side on offense, the younger kids, and then we had 4 older kids, 3 coaches, and my son were on the scout team tonight. My son's in 3rd grade, and we didn't have 11. So we resort to garbage cans, we resort to dummies to stand out there, but it's just not the same. Next up, we did give the kids a survey on Friday once we knew the board meeting was coming. The timing is not ideal with everything going on, but we gave the current sophomores and freshmen, so that'd be your 10 players, who would be affected by this because this would be their senior or junior year. So we asked them if they would rather keep our own team, DeSoto, as an 8-man and stand alone and still have our own identity and still have a sense of pride and community, or play as a co-op with another school. They did ask, who could we co-op with? And we gave them the possibilities and let them pick 2, and they weren't interested in any of it. So the results were 10-0. They wanted to continue on their own as DeSoto. I did, some people say, well, colleges won't look at you, this and that. Well, I reached out to 3 guys that I know. So Mike Schmidt, he's that coach, used to be at UWL, now he's out in North Dakota. He said he wouldn't hesitate. They got players on their roster from 8-man. Matt Janus from out at UWL. They got same thing. They're going after 8-man kids. If you're good enough, they'll find you. And the last one's a Division 1 guy who I know from high school. He's the D coordinator at Kansas State, and they have a few on their team even at the Division 1 level. So, college recruiting is still going to be the same. They're still going to reach out and find you. Changes to the game. You're basically taking out 2 linemen and 1 skill guy. So that allows maybe sometimes you have a surplus lineman, you can move one of them to a tight end or a receiver position or a running back. You just basically use what you got, which we've been accustomed to here for quite some time, just being creative with everybody. The field dimensions, when they did redo the field a couple years ago, they did mark a spot for the goalpost for an 8-man field, just in case down the road that were to happen. So that's already staked all there. So that would just move a goalpost and you'd be set there. And this is just a statement from me. I was reluctant to the idea for many years. Last 2-3 years, I just kind of come around with seeing, Potosi finding a co-op partner. They were a super strong program. They just wanted to add to it because they knew they would have trouble with numbers. Blackhawk won a state title, and then the next year co-opted and then won another one. So, even the teams that are, traditionally strong are looking at their current situation and ways to improve it, I guess, and leverage themselves for future success. Our coaches coaching, year after year, our coaches would rather coach players, I guess, than be out there in the scout team. So there's some days we have to wear a helmet just so we're protecting our faces. Not, we're not tackling any of them, but just the fact that it's kind of taken away sometimes from the coaching aspect of it. These are from some comments from other schools. I won't read through all of them. I'll just kind of hit there, but it did get comments from guys that are already in it. The one I'll get to is Belmont because that's the most recent and closest, but, a lot of it talks about, you can play kids when they're ready and not just necessarily because they're the next best athlete that you got to just kind of throw out there. And I'll let you read it all, but this was a big one for me. Boys quit football because you went to 8-man, and all of them say no. And the kids we asked, they were all there. If they enjoy it, they all enjoy it. It's still football. They're still going to tackle, run, and catch, still be held accountable for things. But Belmont, he's a big thing. I talked to him today, and he wished they just would have went earlier. None of these guys really regret moving. Just to give you an idea, Belmont went last year was their first year 8-man. They'd struggled for years in 6 Rivers just with numbers and being the small school. They went last year for their first year, and we're a game to go to state just because of the change, just getting 3 kids that might not have been ready and then having a JV and practice squad. So, you can make a big stride if you got a good group of kids. Let's see, that's the same thing. This, and Brandon touched on this too, but this is the current 8-man conference that they have. Now that line is there because the top teams there are above the line would be the conference, and then the bottom would be a crossover situation. But if we were to leave and pursue this, and let's say 2 or 3 other Ridge and Valley schools followed, they would also be in that top part, which would eliminate the need for those crossovers. Because there's some pretty decent trips, but obviously you wouldn't make all of those. But the more local teams or smaller teams that are nearest go, that's who they would group us with. And, that's the rest of the stuff is numbers that Brandon can touch on. But, the link is here with teams that are playing 8-man in their enrollment. And, anybody over 200 is ineligible. But if you play them, they don't count against you for playoff losses, really. They have a point system. So, it's not like now where if you were to get stuck by somebody that's 300 or 400 people, they still count against you. So, that's
I guess all that I would add is I put those numbers on there so you could see how far we would have to travel and kind of what the costs were based on what I did this year for the budget. I spoke with Kickapoo's athletic director the other day who they also just went 8-man. And he told us that originally before COVID-19 happened, they were slated to go over by Green Bay and play in a crossover game. And there's no doubt that there's probably going to be a time when we're going to have to go do that. So it will be a longer trip, like Mr. Wicks said, but we can use that as an opportunity to maybe play a Saturday game. Kickapoo talked about they did some fundraising, and their plan initially was to then go do a tour of Lambeau Field while they're over there, see Lake Michigan, make it a cool experience for the athletes. So, Ev and I haven't really dug too much into that yet, but I feel like that would also be a good opportunity for our kids to go do that. But like he said, we're only a couple of Ridge and Valley teams away from going 8-man to having the whole conference back together anyway. So travel is going to be maybe a little bit farther in some aspects, but there are a lot of teams that we normally play in every other sport that would be on our schedule as well. Av knows far more about football and where this is headed than I do. If he thinks it's time to bring this to your attention, I completely support it. I completely agree with him. So I guess what we're looking for is your guys' approval and thoughts about us exploring this application, sending that application in to leave. It would be leaving for football only for the Ridge and Valley at this time. Everything else would be the same, but that application does need to be in within a month here. So, if you have questions, I'll do what I can to answer them, and Av, I'll probably defer to you for anything else football related.
Yeah, and this year with the situation we're in right now, with having to cancel the first two due to the situation, if we had 30, 40 kids, we would be playing. But the reality is we don't. And, I felt terrible for our kids, especially when they called me. And then when I had to get on there today and tell them about it, it's not something we want to do. And, calling Highland, I felt just as bad for those kids. And, we're a game of high injury, high risk. And, if we get more or unfortunate and have the wrong kids hurt this year, it could happen more often, unfortunately. But, we're hoping that does not happen and we're able to keep going here starting week 3. So, I know football is a passionate sport, especially around here. But at the same time, we're seeing it day in and day out and year after year where there's more and more challenges with small rosters. And we just, everybody I've talked to with A-Man to say kind of know when it's time and it may be time to look at this. And I got, if anybody's got questions on it or any comments, if I don't know the answer, I can find it out. But, everything I've heard is, you're still teaching all the same skills. You're still teaching all the life skills too, that we've probably, hammered into these guys for years, but it'll still be football experience for these kids.
I think that's an excellent presentation, Ev. My only concern is that just so the board members know that to have these facts to back up the decision that's made by the board, because you're going to get a lot of questions in the public without there being education when you make a motion right away, and there's not much out there in the community about it. And if we do make a decision, just so everybody's aware of the facts that are leading to our decision.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we put the player survey in there too, because that's the big one who we're doing all this for is the kids, and tonight we don't have to decide if we're going to go 8-man. We just need to explore the conference realignment, from what I understand. Correct? Yeah. So we just.
We're just looking to move forward with that application, and all that really is we show them our enrollment and show basically what our intentions are moving forward. But the deadline for 8-man for 2022 is not until December. So, right now it's just digging in and taking that first step into that application.
I appreciate
and
that.
I know it's not going to go. I know it's not going to go super smooth with some groups maybe in the community, but you know, we got to look what's best for the kids in the future. And like I said, I understand it's not the same because I've been around 11 man my whole life, and I love it. And it's, you know, it's just looking for a better opportunity and a better way to do the best we can with what we have. And, you know, the days of us having 30, 40 kids out for football are long gone. You know, I don't think we're ever going to see that 30 to 40 number again.
I think it was a great presentation with a lot of good data that really helped us to have. Would this be something you'd be interested in having a meeting like this online for anybody in the district to?
Yeah, we got no problems. You know, I got some of that stuff from the other things, but just kind of pounded away on it on short notice. But if there's anything you think I need in there, please let me know. But I think everything there is pretty cut and dry, especially when you look at our enrollment and the split of boys and current participation. But I got no problem. I can put it on my football website. I can put it out there for whoever.
I think it'd be neat to put it out there and at least hold one meeting.
Yeah.
You know, wherever anybody that wants to be at it can be at it, and the data strongly supports your position. And anybody that's been around you knows it hasn't been something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I've said that even at the banquets and stuff that I'm not in favor of it, but you know, sometimes it's exhausting to try to get the guys where they need to be and year after year, and it wears on the kids too, because you know, you might have a kid that's got to play 4 or 5 different spots and their head's swimming a little bit. So this would eliminate some of that.
I'd like to add that I serve on the WIA realignment committee, and this is a process. So just because an application is put forward doesn't mean it'll be approved. It can also be withdrawn. So this is just a first step in many steps, which would allow time for that community discussion.
Thank you very much.
All right, appreciate it.
So we do need a
Yep,
motion.
that's why I asked if anybody's got any questions.
Sorry, I apologize.
No worries. Okay, so then we would need a motion then to approve the application process as presented. Kevin Walser makes the motion. Got a second by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all for your time.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We'll go back to the preliminary budget then.
Let's go back to the preliminary budget.
Diane, thank you so much for your patience. We appreciate you sitting through this presentation with us. And I think as Mr. Grunning is bringing you up, that the board in their supplementary packet has information that you have shared out with them. And so we'll let you get started.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I think the discussion we just had about not knowing which way plans are going to go for sports or admissions or other things leads you right into the discussion tonight, because we still have a lot of budgetary variables that are, as yet undetermined. I'm going to share my screen if this will allow me to do that. And we'll start with this screen. Is that presentation coming up for you? Or looks like it's blinking on my end.
Oh, there we go.
Is it blinking for you or is it holding solid?
Blinking.
There we go. Okay. And there's also some information that you have related to property value, which we just received in the last couple of weeks. And then you should have the budget publication document. So we'll be going back and forth with those in the next couple of minutes here. So I want to let you know this to sort of set the stage. So many of these slides, information will change in the next couple of weeks. And in the very last slide, I've included a calendar so you can see what's going to happen when, because you're probably wondering why this budget looks very similar to the budget that you've seen the last two times you looked at this. But we have been making updates in a number of areas. When we get to the annual meeting, we will know several factors that we don't know today. We're just in the process of managing those numbers that we got from the third Friday count, which was last Friday. So the head counts, open enrollment in, open enrollment out, our total resident student count times the proration for students who are not full-time, such as 4K, will give us the FTE that plays into the revenue limit calculation. And talking with Lindsay, we don't have the final numbers on all of those, in all of those categories, but the day-to-day, the resident head count, open enrollment in and out, along with summer school, will play into our total calculation for revenue limit. And this meeting was about a week ahead when we're really going to get those numbers.
Yeah, I had mentioned that because our calendar, we don't have school on Friday, the third Friday, it traditionally aligns up with the Vernon County Fair. We requested a waiver, and the date that we take that third Friday count is actually this Thursday. So that is why we don't have those numbers.
Okay, so without the actual head counts and the open enroll in and out, there isn't a significant reason to change the revenue limit worksheet that we've been using all along. So our revenue calculations have remained approximately the same, except for the difference that we might find in open enroll in and out. The reason that we need to have that FTE is that FTE in the second graph that you see here is going to be multiplied times our per pupil dollar amount. And then we're going to know what our total revenue limit authority is. So until then, we really can't do much as far as adjusting the revenue. But we will be doing that in the next week or so. Sorry, I'm going to move my mouse here. Okay, so one of the slides that we'll update then for the annual meeting will be this current FTE for the revenue limit. We'll have that updated when you see that next after the count is done. The dollar amount per pupil this year was already determined 2 years ago. In 1920, we had $175 per pupil, and in 2021, it's $179. So that's $179 over the $175 from last year. But something, as you look through the numbers here and look at the where we were back in 2007-8, and then the reduction of almost $600, the per pupil additions have finally just hit to where we would have a per pupil dollar amount similar to what we had in 2010. We did have corresponding with Act 10, we had corresponding reductions in costs, but from the revenue limit side, we're just now getting to be at a number that on a per pupil revenue where we were at in 2010. When we get the revenue limit done, computed, we're going to be looking at that computation, the revenue limit, which is made up of those two items, the tax levy and the state aid. The tax levy that we're estimating right now would be $3,624,000. That's from 10 and 38 together. And state aid at $2,774,000. If either one of these changes, if state aid goes up, it doesn't give us any additional dollars. All it will do will be change the amount that we will include in the tax levy. And one of the notes to make is that about 80% of our revenue is controlled by this revenue limit computation, which is the dollars per pupil and the number of pupils we can count. So going back to what I just said, if we had an increase in the state aid, the tax levy will go down. if we have a decrease in the state aid, the tax levy will go up. So I think everybody understands how that works. The estimate right now for 2021 is $2,774,994. That's based on the dollars that we spent last year. We'll get that certified on October 15th, and that's when we'll be able to determine what the total tax levy will be, but not until that day. Our aid membership is determined by the January count. So we'll be getting an update on the January count and any changes that might have been made to that pupil count and adjustment from last January. So each January count is for aid membership, but it's the September count that's for the revenue limit. So we'll have this updated with the dollar amount that they're using for our aid membership this year. Something to keep in mind about open enrollment, even if the number of students stayed the same, the dollar amount for open enrollment in and out this year has changed to $8,125 for regular ed students and $12,977 for special ed students. As it is with the open enrollment counts, from what I can tell by looking at last year students that were included in open enrollment and considering that 12th graders now have left the district and will be open enrolling out, the number of students per grade is smaller at where we have those incoming grades. And we had a significant number of students open enrolling out in the 12th grade who now have left the district. So it looks like we could have about an 8 student gain, but to where our dollars out will not be as high as they were last year, although the price per student is going up. So we might hold our own in the area of open enrollment expense, but I see it, if things turn out to be true, we'll have a few more open enrolled students in than we had last year, which is to our advantage, and we'll have a few less students open enrolling out, which again is to our advantage. The history here, though, is still to have a trend where the students are, more students are open enrolling out than in, but when you look at it grade by grade, it seems to be changing. But we can provide some open enrollment grade by grade information maybe in a month or so after the annual meeting, if you want to see where the real trends are. So we'll update this too. This is the dollar amounts that I'm currently using for open enroll in and out, with $296,000 being the revenue and $571. So we have a $275,000 difference. So anytime we add more students in or have fewer students open enroll out, that is good for our budget. The private school choice, it has seemed like it's been consistent for the last few years that there's more students participating in the choice program. Generally, once they're in the choice program, they don't exit the choice program. We don't receive any indication about that number changing. It could, but right now our budget's including that those 4 students will continue to participate in school choice.
And it's still interesting to note that, Diane, that regular ed open enrollment is $8,125, but when we send money to a private school, it's higher.
It's higher, yeah. But there isn't a designation for special education.
The public to public, it's less
That's
than
because
public
nobody
to
from
private.
public education or special education goes to a private school.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
But I don't believe there's any kids that open enroll out of a public school into a private school for special education, is there?
Not in our case, but we wouldn't know. We are not given the names or the student classification at the time they enroll. So we wouldn't be able to know that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
So looking at the proposed budget, right now we're proposing a balanced budget. This may change. The budget that you're you're going to be looking at tonight and reviewing includes the staff and salary and fringe increases. We've entered all the data into Skyward. It also has an update for the FEMA dollars. We're expecting the CARES Act dollars, GEARS, and that revenue just from FEMA, CARES, and GEARS is $242,000. So when we look at our revenue year over year, you're going to see that there is an increase in those state or federal sources because these are dollars that are, conditioned on COVID. Another item that is included in the budget was the lighting project, which was $155,000 just about. So as we talk more about budget, or as the year goes on after we get the final revenue, we can look at some of those capital projects that have been discussed and talk about the use of fund balance and the effect on state aid. And I guess I would just say one thing. If you're going to be negatively impacted by spending, if your state aid is going to be negatively impacted by spending, it would happen in either year that you spend it. Because we didn't spend as much in 1920, we have a little bit of increase in state aid in 2021. And that really tends to level off. Your spending and your aid tends to level off when you look at it over a period of years altogether. But it does change and adjust itself up and down related to your spending and your number of pupils. But we can analyze that further when you think about using any of the fund balance dollars for projects.
Yeah. It's just,
We will update fund balance. I'll tell you, we can look at it in just a minute and see where you're at. We did have the audit and added approximately $275,000 to the fund balance at the end of 1920. So with the audit concluding a couple weeks ago and getting the final entries and making adjustments, we added about $275,000. This table is only through 1819, so we'll add 1920 and recalculate the percent of fund balance.
would you say that a lot of the reason for such a large amount that we added to the fund balance was just due to the fact that, we saved some money with the year kind of coming to a conclusion in March?
I would say some of that, of course, if you recall, if students weren't in since the middle of March, the buses didn't need to run. We didn't have to buy fuel. That's one cost factor. So anything related to transportation ceased, and that would be a quarter of the year practically. Another part of that is that with not being able to attend school, some of our dollars that might have been spent to order things for the library or order technology or even have contractors come in and do work. When your building is off limits to everyone, that generally means off limits to everyone. And the chief thing on our minds is safety, student learning, and continuing the educational program, not necessarily what's it going to look like in August when we see our final fund balance. If you can't really plan for spending, and in some cases we might have said we want to spend money, but when school isn't in session, there's others that might say, why are we spending the money? I think you can be more thoughtful about the use of that money now than we might have been had we scrambled in May and the middle of June to expend dollars when we didn't know what the costs were, if we were going to be able to start school again. I'm very conservative when it comes to using fund balance. I like us to be mindful because we can only use it once. And sometimes it is better to let a little time expire so you can really prioritize instead of taking care of an immediate need, taking care of a more important need, if that makes sense. So you have time to consider how to use these funds and what would be the best, perhaps one-time expenditures that'll put you in a better place from the standpoint of capital projects or facilities, rather than have consumed it in some other way in April, May, and June when we were thinking about taking care of kids and staff and the community overall.
Thank you.
One other part of the annual meeting will be Fund 80 and explaining the sources and uses of the fund. I'm only just becoming familiar with how your Fund 80 is used, and by the time we get to the annual meeting, I'm sure there's someone there who's a better expert on just exactly how you've been using your Fund 80, what the programs are, and what we're doing. But since Fund 80 has a fund balance of $49,932, I think it's appropriate to reduce the tax levy for Fund 80 this year, because that fund balance in itself is adequate for all the programs that have currently been funded in Fund 80. So you'll see on the summary sheet for the tax levy that the Fund 80 levy could go down if the board would choose to do so. Part of what I could see is in surround care, we have budgeted about $16,000, and then all of the other programs altogether are about $25,585. About half of this budget is covered with the collection of fees and not part of the tax levy. So I think, getting some more information on what happens in the community, whether any of these need to be updated, excluded, maybe they're not continuing this year because of COVID. We need to spend some time on what the Fund 80 budget might be before we could propose the final budget at the annual meeting. And Lindsay, do you have a community service coordinator, someone who could provide more information on that at our next meeting, perhaps?
Yes, I could do that.
That'd be awesome. Okay, so we'll get some more information and input there. So this gives you an idea of what we're looking at for the tax levy. And you can see in the general fund that the dollar amounts on the tax levy are going down. That's somewhat in alignment with the fund, with the state aid going up. But some of this also is because the revenue limit is declining because our enrollment is declining. So it's kind of twofold. One is that our students are declining, so our total revenue limit is going down. And at the same time, we have a slight little uptick in state aid. The biggest differences you're going to see is in the debt levy. Our Fund 38 debt is approaching its final payment soon, and the Fund 39 debt, the referendum debt, at the same time, the principal and interest payments are going down in 38. The debt is structured so that the debt levy goes up in 39. So in the past, it was $528,000, and for the levy between the two debt funds, and now it's $568,000. So while one fund goes down, the other fund goes up, but debt tends to be structured to have about a constant mill rate associated with it. And if the Fund 80 levy goes back to what it was in 1819, you can see that the total tax levy would be $3,521,000, which is a 4% decrease. This is the time, I guess, to look at your property value sheet. The property value is estimated to go up 5% based on all those townships that you're seeing. And depending on the portion of those townships that are in the DeSoto School District, our estimate may not be exactly 5% when we finally get the property value on October 1st. But if it is a 5% increase in property value, means that we take a smaller dollar of a levy, this $3.5 million, into a larger amount of property value, and we end up with a lower mill rate. The mill rate last year was, I think, 9.17, so that's a significant drop. One of the things that we can do to help keep that mill rate a little more constant, would be considering levying more in the debt fund and looking at possibly defeasing or prepaying some debt if that's possible. And so I guess in just a minute, I'd like to hear some of your opinions about mill rates and possibly keeping the levy at a more steady amount. The equalized tax rates, these are the shows where DeSoto is. You're fairly close to the state average right now. And when we get the 2019 and 2020, I'm assuming with this trending down, you're going to be right at about the state average. So that might be important to your decision about whether or not you would want to think about prepaying some debt by including a dollar amount in the Fund 39 levy. And lastly, just so you know how the schedule is going to go, we're going to have some final enrollment updates somewhere around the 25th. But if we don't have to count until the 24th, then I would say it's going to get closer to October 1st before we really know the enrollment. Lindsay, how long does it usually take start to finish after the count date for you to get that processed in the district?
Not very
Does
long.
it take a week to verify all of those things with open enrollment in other districts?
No, I think we get it done in a few days.
In a few days. Okay. So we're talking about a week from now to be able to get the numbers. Shortly after that, October 1st, we're going to get that property value certified. And October 15th, a few weeks after that, we'll get the state aid certified. But in between that 1st and the 15th, we have to have the publication ready to go and published for the annual meeting, which is the 26th. So generally, the 15th may or may not depends on the publication date for your local paper, but we may have everything we need except the state aid. So after publication, there still may be a change between what we publish and the annual meeting. And if you've been on the board before, you know this is how it goes. But we'll have information for the board on the 19th. Might be slightly different than what was published, but we'll have the information we need on the 19th. So you could see the real numbers that would be in the presentation and decided at the annual meeting. A lot happens now, but the hardest thing to do is be patient on my end because I want to key the numbers in and move along. But we have to just wait out the time and make adjustments to this day by day, based and week by week, based on what we know.
Diane, usually we combine those two meetings at that last one. So we would have that regular board meeting where we would approve the levy on the same night we have the annual meeting.
So you would not have a meeting on the 19th. I thought I saw that on your website, but so no meeting on the 19th?
No, there wouldn't be. We would combine both on that last night. So thanks for pointing that out. I'll double check and make sure it's not on there inaccurately.
I thought I saw it, and maybe I wrote this a while back, but I had 19th as the board meeting and then the 26th. Okay, so that's good. That gives us a little time in between to get that part done. Again, the property value, this is all the municipalities. We have to look at, this is based on DeSoto district. I think it's going to come very close to 5.1% increase. And like I said, if you have a levy, you divide it by more property value. It doesn't decrease the levy, it decreases the mill rate. And a mill rate is something that's commonly compared from district to district.
Diane, speaking of mill rate, do you have the last couple years of our mill rate or not handy?
Not handy.
Okay.
I know last year I think was 917, but no, I'm sorry, I don't. So The last thing I want to show you is we complete a budget workbook that has a lot more information than you see in what gets published. The budget adoption format, which the board will act on, would be all by the different objects of our sources and include all of the functions where we're making our spending. In comparison, when we look at the budget publication format, there's much fewer lines. Some of that is to save space in the paper and costs, but I want you to know that you'll be seeing a full budget adoption workbook with line-by-line functions in Fund 10, Fund 27, debt service, food service, and community service. I think it's important also to point this out. In the current budget in Fund 10, in years past, Fund 10 has had to transfer money to Fund 50 to support its operations. But because earlier in the in the board meeting, you heard about the USDA program and its support of the food service program. In this situation in 1920, the food service program ended up with a $32,000 fund balance. And it will continue to get some additional support from that USDA program until I think it's December 1st. We can check on the date. But for that reason, our Fund 10 expenses do not include this year the amount of money we normally would transfer to Fund 50, which is approximately $50,000. So that's what had previously been budgeted by Sandy for a transfer to Fund 50. It doesn't look like we're going to need that money this year, but we have to keep it in mind that without the USDA program supporting the food service program and possibly having reductions in participation or even increase in costs, we will have to keep that in mind the year after, that this might be a one-off, as they say, to support food service. But the food service support by USDA for the summer food service program was significant and had helped a lot of school districts. Otherwise, this would have been an additional cost to Fund 10 as we close the year. So when you asked about the fund balance addition, we would never have known when this happened that we would not need to transfer to Fund 50 like we did year after year. So part of the fund balance also is the fact that we didn't have to support the food service program because the USDA did that on our behalf. So I hope that it's looking at adding to fund balance is not careless budgeting or careless planning. No one has a crystal ball, and there were things we couldn't foresee until you actually close the books, until you actually make that plan to serve the kids, feed the kids, provide the meals. The financial impact of all that can only be predicted, but it can't be known until we're done at the end of the year. So I guess that's one of the things I'll say. And we'll be seeing a sample hearing notice being put out there. The budget publication format will be narrow in its scope, but you will be adopting the budget and seeing the budget presented for the board and the community in a function area, yet less detail in the paper, more detail in person. That makes sense. That's similar to what's happened before.
Yep.
I'm assuming. Okay. Any questions about what we'll be seeing soon?
When you talked about state aid and local levy being about 80% of our revenue, the other 20% is that, I think it's probably most of that is referendum approved debt service, isn't it?
No. When I talked about 80%, that's Fund 10 alone.
Okay.
So it's 80% of the Fund 10 budget, not 80% of the total school spending. The other 20%, it will have to look at the sporting, as we just talked about, how do we budget for admissions? If we normally have $25,000 or $26,000 for admissions from football, basketball, volleyball, and other school events, but we're not having people attend school events, or if we do, we waive those fees, how do we budget for that? And if the indication is that we're not having any sports season where we're going to open the stadium and collect that $5,000 or $6,000 or $8,000 like we normally would, we need to take that, make sure we take it out of the budget. And those adjustments will get made also in the next few weeks as decisions are made about foregoing revenue. It affects the budget. And rightfully, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying it's something we have to account for on our end and assume that those funds won't be there. So the 80%, the other 20% is chiefly this year federal and other state revenue. We have grants like Title I, we have Title II, Title IV, Title III. There's other money that we get from resources that are not the tax levy and not state aid. And that would be, we'll go up to the top of here. So local revenues, the taxes are 2.9 million, but we have about $25,000 or $26,000 in other local money that we collect from admissions and other things. We have $208,000 in that open enroll-in money that we get. $8,700 when we pay CISA to do something, they transit aid to us. So you can see this other revenue is, $800,000 in other revenue that's not that direct state aid, but it's still a state source. Grants, $420,000 in federal dollars in grants this year. So the other 20% is comprised of a number of different sources altogether, some of which are significant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the main thing to keep in the back of your mind before that next meeting, or maybe you'd like to direct me to start looking at it now, is what would this look like? What would it look like if we took advantage of an opportunity to prepay some debt? Do we have any interest cost savings? Can we have some savings as well as maintain a steady mill rate?
Can you tell us, I was going to ask you about that. How do you get the authority to budget for that, or, for paying that off in advance? Is that?
It's within the power of the board. As long as you have outstanding debt, you can levy additional dollars in debt to prepay that. It only takes board action to decide that.
So we are levying, I don't get as concerned as much about the mill rate as the total dollars that we're levying in the community. We're levying the community, it looks like $150,000 less dollars this year than last year.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I just did that on my screen. I added 150, and that would bring the total levy pretty steady. It's still going to lead to a mill rate decrease because your property value increased.
Right.
So if your message is a steady levy, the dollars are the same, your mill rate will still go down, just not as much. And, if you would like, we can get some numbers and present that at the annual meeting for your action to consider. I can work with Lindsay and possibly share some memos to see if this, because the interest environment is good. What can we do about prepaying? Or is there some debt that we have that might be out at 4.5%? What if we prepay $150,000 now? How much interest do we save by prepaying that money now? It could be wise in two ways. save some money and also keep your total dollar of your levy fairly consistent year to year.
How does the state look at that? Is, you know, I mean, it's kind of like, do they treat that extra levy like, since we're over our revenue limit, like spending fund, or the fund balance? I mean, do we get treated like that?
It'll give you a prepaid debt scenario, let's say. And
We can meet at a finance committee and discuss that some more too.
yeah. Would we want a finance committee meeting on the 19th when this is all, when we have all our numbers, Lindsay, or the chair?
Yeah, I think that's a great time to do that. You know, when we know for sure where we're at.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay,
We'll plan that then.
just keep that little meeting on my calendar for the 19th, and we'll talk about debt Fund 39 and state aid impacts
Gary, is 5 o'clock
for the following year.
later?
Well.
Whatever is good with you,
Yeah.
we're fine. If you want to go later, we'll go later.
Because I usually work till 5.
Would you like it 6?
No, it's like 5:30.
Would 5:30 work for you, Diane?
You're the boss, Lindsay.
How about 5:30? We'll plan to meet virtually. We'll all be eating sandwiches in front of you, so we can maybe get a carry out to come to your house.
No, that's okay. I'm still trying to get off my COVID-15, so,
Oh.
yeah. And if you can share with Lindsay if there's anything that you think is really important to stress at the annual meeting, since this will be my first one with your community. There's tends to be things that locally are important and relevant to your community, and please pass that through to Lindsay so that I make sure I include that.
We can do that. Thank you for that. And we'll share previous year's presentations so that you get a feel for the information. We often have students at that meeting. They may be joining us virtually this year if we are still having to physically distance. So it's often an educational presentation because they do take that information back to Mr. Parker's class for discussion. So it's a very educational presentation format that we do.
I always love having the students there. I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed with the kids and their level of maturity and understanding on topics that you would think they wouldn't be interested in. I love to see them at meetings.
Good. Well, thank you. That's very nice.
Yes, good presentation.
Okay, so I will stop sharing and leave you all.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. We'll know more in a few weeks.
Thank you for your great presentation.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
We need a motion then.
Okay, so we need another motion or a motion to approve the 2021 preliminary budget. Motion by Brent, seconded by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Your next item of business is Start College Now credit requests.
Yes, we have a student, there is information in your packet on this, who has requested to be able to take 2 classes, General Physics and Intro to Electromechanical Tools, Mechanical Tools. The cost for the General Physics is $560, and the cost for the Electromechanical Tech class is $280. The student is in good standing, and it was also noted has never been a behavioral problem. So we would support this ability to take those 2 courses.
And it's because he's completed all of our coursework and we don't offer these classes at our school.
That would be correct.
I make a motion.
Okay, Jess makes a motion to approve it. Kevin seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.9, district goals.
We are going to reserve that one for next month, the annual meeting. The new 7.9 is the 2021 cyber insurance.
Okay.
We had a discussion about including cyber insurance, and we deferred that. We made a decision that we would like to add that this year because it does help us with coverage in case any cyber attack accesses personal employee account information such as bank account numbers or social security numbers. And so we are looking to add that to our plan this year. It's an additional $2,472. It gives us $1 million coverage, and with a $2,500 deductible. Again, if we reflect back, we had over $10,000 in insurance savings this last year, so we are still going to be paying less this year than we would last year. So it's not costing us any more to provide this, in essence, than what we spent on insurance last year.
Any questions?
Motion to approve it?
Kirk makes a motion to approve it. Ryan seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion,
One nay.
there's a-
Nay,
okay. All right,
and mostly because I just don't understand it.
It gives us coverage if we have a cyber attack and they get into, Dwayne can address that a little bit more, but our biggest concern is to ensure that personal identification, bank accounts, and social security numbers are not drawn down. And
We had them back it off. It's more like, instead of full coverage, it's liability insurance. What we're paying for. If we get hacked and they get all of our teachers' social security numbers, then we have to pay to have the credit bureaus run credit checks for X number of years, and they'll cover that. I wasn't a big fan of the insurance at all, and that's why we eliminated everything but the liability part of it. They're not gonna help us recover anything, they're just gonna protect our liability.
In discussions with you in the past, that's
Yeah.
what I felt here.
Yep. Yeah, they're not gonna help us restore or recover anything at all.
It doesn't matter, it's carried anyway.
They're just gonna cover our butts.
I was just questioning
Yeah.
what you had
Yeah.
said in the past.
I appreciate
And
that.
that's fine.
okay.
are you holding your nay vote then, just for clarification?
They can stay in there.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have to agree all.
Just checking.
You agree to disagree.
All right, our next item then is the FFA State Convention Student Awards.
Well, Mrs. Bark is joining us, and I so appreciate her staying with us throughout the meeting. We often recognize at our meetings without her presence, the success of the FFA program, not only in what they do during the school day, but what they do for our community through the county fair, through the countless competitions and leadership programs they participate in, national and state qualifications, and some great things continue to happen. And so when we had some additional monetary awards, Mrs. Bark was good enough to say she would attend the meeting tonight. So we welcome you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. So yeah, it's kind of been a weird 6 months here with FFA because right about the time the school closed was about the time that we really ramp up for the year and really are doing a lot of things. So, I guess even with that kind of, hiccup, we were still able to have some members that did some pretty good things. One of the things, we did get a grant in June from our state FFA foundation. It was called the Rally to Fight Hunger grant. We used that money to purchase items for the food service program. So everybody that was receiving the June meal deliveries, it was a block of cheese from AMPI, a roll of summer sausage from Bacalar's, and then a sleeve of crackers. So like just kind of a fun little, summer snack kind of a thing that we were able to send out. And then still support, AMPI is a local milk processor that we have, and Bacalar's is right up there in La Crosse. So that was one of the things. We had some students working on that grant application, which that kind of stuff gets all kinds of interesting when you have kids. You're trying to work with them on meets and over email and everything else instead of collaborating with them in person. But anyways, so I believe it's in your board packet. There's a letter that I received in July, and it just summarizes our monetary awards that our students received as a result of our state FFA convention. Our state convention is usually in the beginning of June, obviously in person. It was held in July this year, and it was hosted like on Facebook. So it was a week-long thing where they were posting the videos and stuff on there. So not as exciting as it usually is, but at least, they did a good job with what they had to do. There was really no other option than to host it how they did. So those monetary awards that you guys have in your packet are for proficiency applications. Proficiencies award kids that have really outstanding work-based experiences. We call them SAEs in the ag department, supervised agricultural experiences. Every ag student has one. Every FFA member has one, to differing degrees. Some of them are really involved, like the students you see on your sheet. Some of them, are just very, very basic. But either way, we're looking at career development, whether they're going into ag or if they're not going into ag, they still need to have good job skills. Those applications for the proficiency awards, they end up being about 20 to 25 pages. And so if anybody ever tells you there's no writing in the ag room, it's all writing. I shouldn't say all. Probably 5 pages of it is financials. So financials from the date that they started their FFA membership up until when we submit that application. And then the rest of it's writing prompts. So it's a pretty involved application for these kids to fill out. We had 3 students fill out applications. April Hawkinson was silver in beef production entrepreneurship. The nice thing about having younger members fill them out is we get the applications back with feedback. I usually go to that judging. It's in the Dells every year. And we write on the applications where these kids can improve not only their application, but their project itself, which is kind of the most important thing. So she got a silver, and so she'll be reapplying this year in that area. Morgan Woodhouse was 9th in beef production entrepreneurship. She was a gold ranked at the state, so she did receive money. And she was also a sectional winner for Section 3, which is our area for FFA. And then we had Rachel Gianoli. She was a state finalist in all 3 areas that she applied in. So she did get 3rd in diversified horticulture and specialty crop production. In specialty crop production, she was the sectional winner as well. And then she was a state winner in nursery production. And so, a couple of questions I've had when I've talked to people about this is what her project was. And that was managing the mums that we grew behind the school last year. I'll tell you, she literally wrote in her application for one of her responses, or part of one of her responses, that, if the mums lived, it was because of me. And if they died, it was because of me. And that's pretty accurate, because for about the first month, I would come around every couple of days, make sure they were doing all right. I'm here half the time, it seems anyways. So, but then at the beginning of August last year, I left for 10 days and went to Wyoming for professional development. And she was on her own, and they live, and the whole project worked out just fine. So, she did a good job managing that last year, and we have a student who's managing it again this year, and who knows, maybe can do as well with the proficiency applications too. So her application for nursery production to get forwarded on the national competition, she didn't place at the national competition, or she's not a national finalist. And that makes sense, because her project was a 1-year project, and a lot of these national finalists, they've been doing this, forever, for 6-7 years. So, but she still did really well. And as you can see, they received a pretty decent chunk of change for filling out an application. and just trying to kind of go above and beyond what everybody else did. So that information's there for you. We did have 3 kids get their state FFA degrees this year: Alexa Boardman, Rachel Gianoli, and Trevor Rabon. Some of the requirements for the state FFA degree: they have to have earned and productively invested $1,500 or worked 1,000 hours in an SAE. They have to have a pretty significant record of FFA involvement, including 5 activities that are beyond the chapter level. So some of our contests, our leadership things, our conventions count towards that. They do have to prove that they were served in leadership capacities in our FFA chapter, as well as that they have parliamentary procedure knowledge. And they need 25 hours of community service, and they need to have taken 360 hours of agricultural education courses, which is equivalent to 4 high school ag classes. So it's a pretty long list, and that also ends up being a pretty long application too. That application, because we're looking at how much money sometimes that they've invested, it's not just financials on their project, their SAE, it's also personal financials. So, we're looking from the time they joined FFA until the time we submit that application, how much money they have, what they've spent it on, how much is it for personal expenses, educational expenses, all that kind of stuff. So that gets pretty intense sometimes. The last one is one that we just found out about this week. For the 2nd year in a row, we do have an American degree recipient from our FFA chapter. Last year, Johanna Kunert was our recipient that we had from our chapter. And then before that, I believe it was 2005 was the previous time that we had a member that received the American degree. And so Morgan Woodhouse will be receiving it this year. Unfortunately, our convention is online like everything else. So that's kind of a bummer, but I guess it makes these kids stronger in the end when they have to persevere through maybe not getting the same opportunities that everybody else has had. But some of the requirements for the American degree, they have to have earned their state degree already. They have to have 540 hours of ag education. So that's 6 high school ag classes or 6 semester long ag classes. For the American degree, they have to have earned and productively invested $10,000 in their SAE, or worked over 2,500 hours in an SAE. And then they also need 50 hours of community service. They say it's less than 1% of FFA members that get the American degree. And, I'd say that because the FFA enrollment nationwide is going way up, that number is probably getting close to maybe 0.5% of FFA members ever get the American degree, because there's some pretty stringent requirements on it. But, otherwise with the FFA, I've got a good group of officers, had some wrenches thrown at us here in the last few days, that we have an officer meeting tomorrow and they've got some really good ideas. And I think it's time we try and implement them and see what we can do with the situations that we're given. Like I said, it's a really, really good group of kids, and they've got some really good ideas, and some of them are a little different. And I said, well, if there's any year that any of these ideas are going to work, it's going to be this year, because this year is so different in general. So, it's a good group of kids to work with, and we're looking forward to, we have to change things up this year. Just because of the situation. One of the things that we are doing is we're not charging our members dues. We're going to pay that out of our activity fund instead of charging it to our members like we usually do. We don't charge local dues. The $12.50 that we charge, it all goes to state and national FFA. And kind of one of the things that irks us a little bit is state and national FFA aren't really offering anything. Like, all the stuff that we're offering is going to probably be happening at the local level. So we're going to cover that money ourselves. We've had some kids that have donated money, or parents that have donated money towards their dues cost, which is really appreciated. But, it's a little hard to charge when we can't really say where we're going to be in a month or in 3 months and whatnot. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to change and adapt this year. And like I said, hopefully we get some other types of activities going that be a little creative, I guess, because that's what we have to do. So if you guys ever have any questions about anything, for sure, let me know. Give me a call. I'm not at my desk a lot, but you can call me at my desk. Otherwise, shoot me an email, and I'm always happy to answer them. So.
Mrs. Bark, what are your numbers this year for both your middle school and your high school program?
Well, we're still accepting memberships. Last year we ended up at 75. Our membership year actually, like we don't submit our rosters until March. So there's kind of a lag with that. We accept memberships usually all the way through until, we usually don't get a lot of memberships coming in March, but usually we're getting the bulk of them through December. So, we're going to be probably on pace, maybe a little less this year, but one of the things the officers have talked about is their big thing this year is involvement. We've grown a lot in the last few years. Now they want to get these kids involved, and I fully support that.
Well, we're very appreciative because we know without a strong mentor, a strong teacher, a strong advisor, these programs dwindle. The relationships you have made with these kids is exceptional, and the opportunities have really been tremendous. And to have 2 back-to-back American degree recipients is absolutely phenomenal. So congratulations to you, because I know the amount of time and guidance that goes into both those state awards from the part of the advisor, as well as to guiding and supporting and encouraging and the kicks in the butts that come along the way to make sure those applications get in. Congratulations to you too.
Oh, thank you. It helps to have good kids to work with, for sure.
So in case you don't know, Mrs. Bark also serves as event staff, has coached for us, is the advisor, the ag teacher, and sits on numerous committees. So we really appreciate how you find time to do everything.
Thanks. Thanks.
Well, anything?
Thank you
for
very
Mrs.
much,
Bark?
Lori. That was
Do you
great.
still need any vegetables for anything? Are you still looking for?
I'll take what we can get. We made blackcurrant jam last week. We're gonna go pick some grapes tomorrow. We're kind of rolling with whatever comes in, the produce of the week. So
You want a bunch of tomatoes?
What's that?
You want a bunch of tomatoes?
Yeah, actually, I've got some peppers already that somebody dropped off, so I'll take tomatoes for sure.
Be careful saying that.
Am I gonna end up with a lot now?
Like a zucchini,
What's that?
I say tomatoes are like zucchini right now.
That's true. I've heard from a lot of people it's been a really good year for gardens. My garden, the same way. So, yeah.
Is there anything special you would want?
Right now I would say that probably, tomatoes are probably at the top of the list. But I'll think if there's anything else, and I'll let you know if I think of anything else in particular that we'll need, or that we want to work with.
So if we supply grapes, do we get some grape jelly? How does this work a little bit, or is this all going?
Sure. Why not? We'll see how many grapes we end up picking tomorrow, but I do have about 120 pounds of black currants in the freezer. So, I can make enough jam for the entire school. We could just start doing that, I guess.
We're all in agreement that sounds good. We'll get the toasters going and the butter out, and we'll have some toast with jelly and jam.
Would you be able to use some peaches in the next couple of days?
In the next couple days?
Yep.
Probably next week I could probably use some peaches, yeah. If they're not bad already.
They're good right now, but they wouldn't be next week. But.
Okay. Probably, even for what we're using them for, I probably could even put them in the freezer real quick and then pull them back out. So I'm going to do it with the grapes too, because they're getting kind of to the end of their life here, but.
Well, thank you. I will invite you back next month so we can sample all the goodies that you make.
Well, right. Well, we'll talk more about canning recipes next month. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Bark.
Yes. Do they have some peaches?
Okay.
We lining down.
That's it. Okay, now we need COVID school plans. Is that the next item?
I guess that is. All right.
Can we just go over the highlights?
Sure.
Yeah.
It won't take too long.
Yeah, we've heard that before.
All right.
Where's Karen?
I've got my gas.
There she is. Oh, no.
So I'm just gonna review just a few things, partly because quite honestly, this week is, as you know, and has been on our website, we had our first COVID positive case here at the high school. And so I just want to review some things that have been in previous information, but our schools were designed for social and peer interaction and not necessarily physical distancing or social isolation. So our kids have been doing an excellent job following the guidelines that we have put out for them to socially distance at all times. You saw some of these pictures the last time to show the extra barrier that we have been putting in place. So we have the physical distancing, we have the mask wearing, we have all the CDC, EPA approved disinfectants that we're using. We have daily protocols for cleaning and transitions, and all these barriers that were built by our custodians and maintenance and Geraldine Power and other parent and administrative volunteers. And so we have these things up at the elementary schools, the middle school, high school, barriers for our secretaries, for the food service line, and all over. And then it's a little harder to see, but these barriers also extend past the seating area so that the students are looking into a plexiglass barrier, not to the side of someone's face. We are socially distancing our rooms by 6 feet where we can. But again, our rooms are not big enough to do that uniformly, and that's why we've added those extra plexiglass barriers. As you can see here, we've got the tables that are separated, physically distanced, and we have a barrier that acts, separates students from one another. Here's what it looks like during the school day. This picture was taken today. So you can kind of see how the kids have their masks on, they're doing what they should be. They're working on their laptops, and they have that extra plexiglass barrier in place. Brandon Erking mentioned what volleyball looks like. This is from Saturday's volleyball game. You can see the social distancing or physical distancing between the players. All their chairs are 6 feet apart. They each have their own towel on their chair. Their chair is labeled, so they go back to their chairs. When they transition in and out, between games, their chairs are wiped down with the disinfected cloth. And the balls are also wiped. Anytime a ball is exchanged in and out the court, the balls get wiped as well. We have these protocols in place. We're reminding our students on a daily basis on hand washing and using hand sanitizer, covering coughs and sneezes with Kleenex, and then washing your hands afterwards. The physical distancing, again, we can't maintain that perfectly in our buildings. There are transition times when kids are walking close to one another, but they aren't doing that for a 15-minute period. We have ways to work with our elementary students on different storybooks that have been recorded, or YouTube that they can listen to, or that are being read in classes. We all know that the governor's order for face masks does expire at the end of this month. We don't know if that order will be extended, but our recommendation from our school nurse as well as our administrative team is that we continue wearing masks throughout the year until we have a safe community that is COVID-free. Now, we are looking at all those things: physical distancing, hand washing, hand sanitizing, using the EPA, CDC approved chemicals for disinfecting, and wearing these masks. We feel they're all ingredients to get the outcome we want, just like a recipe. When you make something, you put in all the ingredients, and if you get the right ingredients together, you should anticipate the outcome of that final product. We recognize that maybe one of these alone isn't going to prevent the transmission or even mitigate against the transmission, but collectively, we believe that collectively we get the outcome we want. So our recommendation is that regardless of when the governor's order expires, that we will continue to follow our best practices until we know we have a safe community and a safe school. Again, day to day, the PPE equipment that's being worn, that includes when we have a student who is ill, we mask up, we goggle up, we put a face shield on, they put a gown on, and we put gloves on. And we work with the student that way to address if they have any of the symptoms. If they have multiple symptoms, they are obviously sent home. If they have a fever like normal, they would be sent home. If they're just not feeling well like normal, we would call moms or dads to come pick the students up. We provide a complete packet of information for all of our families when we send a child home who's ill, regardless of what we perceive the reason to be. If they go home ill, the family does get a packet, which includes resource information on who to contact if they have any questions or concerns about communicable diseases or illnesses, as well as COVID-19. This is the chart that we are continuing to use. You have a copy in your handouts. This is the one where we address baseline symptoms here. If this is a normal baseline symptom for a child, that we have records in their student records that they have allergies or diabetes or migraines or some other illnesses, we consider that a baseline, and we look at symptoms that are above that baseline. If they are their normal baseline, they might not go home. If we've talked to the parent and say we're going to administer their medication, this is normal for them. Do you want to pick them up? Do you want them to stay? In most cases, the parents are saying it's fine, that they should stay, that they should have their normal medication, just monitor them. If you see any more symptoms or they're not resolving, let us know and we'll come get our child. So we are doing that. If we do send a child home and they aren't getting a COVID test, we are asking them that they remain home for 72 hours or 3 days until those symptoms resolve, and they can do it without the use of medication. That hasn't changed since the board approved this plan. If they do go home and end up getting a COVID test and it's positive, our recommendation has been that they follow the guidance of their medical provider or the county health department. Again, that hasn't changed since what we most recently approved. So if they go and take a test, if they go home ill from school and they take a test, they are invited to come back to school 24 hours after a negative test if they're symptom-free without the use of medication. Now, this is not for those students who are contact traced. That is different. Contact tracing means that they have been identified as an individual who's within 6 feet of a COVID positive case for a period of 15 minutes. It could be 15 minutes of continuous time, or it could be 15 minutes of time that is incremental. In that case, the county or their medical provider may inform them that it's their recommendation that they stay home for 14 days. The 14-day period, to my understanding, is how long it takes for someone to potentially become positive or test positive with the COVID virus. So it doesn't always build up in their system so that you could get a positive test within 2 days or 5 days. It could take as much as 14 days. That seems to be a standard number. So that would be what would happen. If you test positive for COVID, you will be asked to remain home. The recommendation of the county and medical providers has been to remain home in isolation for 10 days from that positive test, or 10 days from the onset of symptoms. Some people are asymptomatic, they have no symptoms, and so therefore the test would be then the date for that 10-day period. So this is the model we have been following and wish to continue to follow. Well, then that's for a discussion, but it is the model we have in place and the one that we have communicated out in our virtual meetings. I just would like to review the health department process, because when there was a COVID case, the health department is notified. We were notified on Saturday afternoon. I received a call from our school nurse. The county had gotten a hold of her. I was involved with the varsity volleyball game at the time, and so did contact the county nurse as soon as I got the call from our school nurse. The county nurse will notify anyone that that has a positive test within 24 to 48 hours. They will begin that contact tracing as we did on Saturday. So we were given a list of names of which we provided the county with parent contact information. The county began doing that phone calling to parents of our students Saturday afternoon, and then finished it, all the contacts Sunday morning. And so again, the individual who is positive is expected to stay 10 days from either symptom onset or the date of the test and be 24 hours fever-free with no symptoms before they can return to school. So I just wanted people to understand that that's the process. We do not call families and inform them that their child is either positive or that their child is being contact traced. That is something that happens from the county and did happen this weekend. So approximately within 24 hours of their notifying of us, in less than 24 hours, all of those who had been contact traced were notified. I went over this. Contact trace are asked or recommended by the county to stay home for the full 14 days. If they do not have any COVID symptoms and don't need to use the medication, they can return to school.
Wouldn't you say recommended is a little bit of a light term on that? Because if you don't follow their recommendation and you get sued, then, so calling it recommended, that's probably going on the light side of the what they're selling.
Well, I agree. It's actually carries a lot of weight. It carries a lot of weight with families. It carries a lot of weight with the community perception. It carries a lot of weight with students who hear this information that you've been contact traced so that you should stay home for those 14. So it sounds more like it's an order, but the county is not ordering quarantines. They are recommending quarantines for those who are positive cases as well as those who have been contact traced. The ordering went out when the legislature sued the governor and the State Department of Health Services for school closure and said you don't have the authority to do that. And at that point, many of our county health departments switched from saying we will approve school reopening plans to we will review them and make any recommendations for change. So anyone who is a positive case or who is contact traced is being given recommendations. Now, most people, I would assume, would talk to their medical provider and hear from their medical provider what they should do.
So if the medical provider says go back to school, you're going to let them come back?
Well, if the medical provider provides us with a note, just like we would happen in sports, if they clear them to return to sports or they clear them from any other illness to return to school, as we have experience with kids who have had some very serious illnesses, the medical provider has cleared them to return. We would be in a position to accept that medical provider, that doctors note that they were safe to return to school and safe for anyone else to be around them.
Thank you for that, by the way.
I'll get the lights.
Are we to me now or no?
Yes, it would be to cross country.
All right.
Do we need a motion to keep that
No.
plan?
Nope. Anyway, we,
There was a motion that was in here. And the only, I would ask for consideration because of the desire of the administrative team and our school nurse that we continue our PPE, our physical distancing, our hand washing, and our cleaning protocols, which would include wearing masks until, as part of everything that we put together to say we're going to have a safe school, even beyond the governor's possible ending date for wearing masks.
So does somebody want to make a motion to continue that? I don't make motions.
I'll make
Motion by Gary, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay, anyway, I had asked Lindsay to put on the agenda some discussion about working on creating a cross-country course. Tim Gillespie's working on his, he bought the neighboring land behind his and the whole hillside. He owns all the way down to the trailer court now.
Oh, okay.
And he's making some trails in his woods, and he talked to me about helping us make some in ours if we want and helping pay some of the expenses and things. So it got us kind of excited, and we started, I guess I started walking up there a lot when where the pine trees are. If you go back in behind the outdoor classroom and you walk up there in where our pine trees are, you know, I walked all the way over to the, what end is this? You're going up the valley. North.
Powers Hill.
So what direction is this?
That'd be
What direction is the east? So I walked all the way to the east end, turned around a little bit, walked all the way back, walked down the hill. And did you all get the pictures I sent you?
Yeah.
So like just from just that section in the pine trees and back gives us almost a half a mile. And then we can go down and we could run on to down to the trailer court. Tim's he's gonna fix the trail so that we're on this side of the creek. He's got a trail right next to the creek that'll go all the way down, and then it'll come back on the old service road that used to come from the trailer court to the school. And that whole loop, one loop is 1.5 miles if we do something like that. And it's very common on cross-country courses to run 2 loops, which you run the course twice, you got 3 miles and you only need about 3.1. We think run the loop twice and then finish running down the middle of the football field and coming under the goalpost or something like that. But we envisioned that we could have a full cross-country course here. I think it would be pretty neat with fans in the stands, the music blaring from the speakers, and everybody's pretty fired up about it. But at any rate, I walked up. Mr. Grunning's got a few clips, and we don't have to watch all of it here, but just to kind of show you what we're looking at. Go ahead, Dwayne. Are all the people able to see this too? Kelly
Yeah.
and Karen? Okay.
Anyone watching should be able to see.
Cross-country course. We're going to go out there around the bus barn, along the woods,
So we would run all the way around our property.
and down the track.
Oh,
We're going to go across this nice little bridge here, and then we're going to circle up behind.
So you go up that valley there to the left?
Yep, around those red leaves and stuff there. We'd go around those, or that's not leaves, that's the building.
Our classroom. We're going to go up that hill, up along the woods. So when I get up there, I'll turn it back on.
I walked up there and walked up around the classroom and up to the woods. So anyway, going through the woods, I think a lot of it we could just do by clearing the debris. There might be a tree here or a little tree there or something that would have to get cut down, because you do need to make it. You need to be able to go through the course with either a 4-wheeler or a Kubota or something like that. It has to be able to go through the lead. I guess you don't have to go through the wooded part. We would probably want that there. But I don't think it would take much dozing at all. It's not uncommon for the courses for kids to run on a little bit of an angle. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. There might be a couple spots in there where we would want to doze it just to taper it a little bit. And I think that if we had a budget of $1,000, I think it'd be $400 or $500 more than we needed, you know, to work on something like that. Up in there. So Tim's excited about it, he wants to support it, and I just talked to him again last night, just to make sure our insurance company will cover our kids when they're running on Tim's at no additional cost. Take a look.
Yeah, it doesn't want to load them.
Okay. Well, anyway, so what we'd be asking is just kind of permission for, I guess it would probably just be me that would do any chainsaw work. You know, where I would trim some, I mean, there's just a lot of trees that are down, and I'm gonna try to pick the most level routes so that we have to do the least amount of work. And, there would need to bring the dozer in there for a spot here and a spot there.
There's a rock road up there, right?
Which,
By those pines.
Well,
that's all right with you
no
guys.
road bed there.
But that,
You walked up above the pines, there's kind of a bed there.
yeah, most places it's pretty good. I really don't think you'd have to do much.
There used to be a road up there.
But it doesn't mean there isn't gonna be, you know, if I cut down 10 trees, most of them aren't gonna be any bigger than this. But it doesn't mean there might not be one that's a fair size that has to go, or one here or one there. But I think I've been on the board for close to 18 years, and I don't know if we've had a student up and use those woods yet. So if we could get some kids into those woods and using it, be excited about it, I think it'd be great. As far as our cross-country program go right now, we've just been a joy to be part of. We have 5 boys when everybody's healthy and can compete on varsity. We only have 3 girls, there's no 4. We had some health issues there too. When they're out there, our middle school boys, we've got 5 middle school boys, and we're really excited about that. We had a young man that started in summer run club, and I don't know who I was watching, but not a lot of people thought he was the most athletic kid in the school, you know. And this kid worked and worked and worked, and just ran on days when other people aren't running. And anyway, he got into his first meet the other day, and he's a 7th grader, never ran in a cross-country meet in his life. You know, and I talked to him a lot about don't go out too fast, you know what you can do. You know, he's been running. Not one of these middle school kids could run a half mile without walking when we started. And this young man, he's just worked and worked, and he's ran his long run now is up to 4 miles. He runs that at least once every week, goes at least 4 miles. We do all kinds of other training. But anyway, he took off on this race. It was a 1.9 mile middle school race. And I warned him about going too fast, you know, and Jesus, you know, after that 1/4 mile, they had all these kids around, and I don't think there were 4 kids behind him. Man, he might have listened too close, you know. Anyway, he just slowly picked them all up, and he wound up being the 3rd place finisher. Only got beat by 2 8th graders and one only by a step. In his pace for the last mile that he ran was 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So 6 minute and 40 second mile.
Oh my goodness.
That's pretty impressive. Anyway, this
coming out. I can show you the 3rd clip.
Okay, that's the 3rd. Okay, that is just coming out. I think there's a deer in that. You know who was there? It was
Some people that come out probably right in here. I hit this just about perfectly, which is honestly blind luck. And we would have a heck of a downhill right here. But I'm not saying which way we'd run the course. Maybe we'd run up first.
Oh, this is
And then come around and
that's a
down
good
the way.
question, but just after the meet that I was at this last weekend, that's why I kind of acted a little
Might be a little bit more gentle.
emphatic when you said that.
Anyway,
So the kids would run right down the hill route. They go right into the woods,
of course,
right into down
down
into
that hill,
across the creek,
on
and
that trail on the left side.
down to the trailer court, and they come back up and go this way over here, come around.
A hard course.
Huh?
That's a hard course.
I'm telling you, we were at a race this week. It was the first time they ever ran on it in Wazeeka.
Back up.
And it's gonna hold the conference meet also. But that course had 2 big hills, half a mile long.
Down to the front,
The kids had to go down for half mile, up a half mile, we had to turn around, come back, down a half mile, up a half mile again. We literally.
we'd be coming on that road.
Right.
That would be a mile and a half.
Our course would be tough, but it wouldn't be that.
And the last half a mile underneath the
Anyway,
well,
I think
goal
it's
post.
great.
Anyway, it'd be cool.
area.
We could do it.
There's no crying in cross country.
That's what it does. And believe it or not, that's exactly what, Jake Ryder said to our kids as they're coming out of the woods,
Baseball.
because we had a couple that were crying. There's no crying in cross country. But,
Right
I
from
mean,
the
I'm
movie.
telling you what, it's character building like you wouldn't believe. And we've got some kids that are participating in this sport that I really don't think they'd participate in any other sport. The kindness of all the upperclassmen to the young kids is just incredible, and to the kids that, like I said, maybe wouldn't be involved in other sports. It's just been amazing to see how good these kids are to each other and what some of these kids have accomplished. I mean, there's the other day that our middle school kids were walking out in front of the volleyball players, and Coach Ryder says, "Well, today we're going to run an easy 3 miles," and those kids were all like, "You're going to run 3 miles?" That's pretty
An
funny.
easy one.
Yeah,
Not a hard
easy,
one.
right? Not a hard 3 miles. Anyway,
Rick, I went to lacrosse today and sit down with Tim in his office. I blew up all your maps.
Yep.
He said you didn't get him to come through that clear, but
okay.
we sat and looked at him and he said that him and Marge do almost anything to support our school district.
Yeah, that's
That's really great about that.
really nice. We're lucky to have them next door when they purchased that additional property. Without that additional property that they purchased, and then maybe we'd still do something through the woods, but it wouldn't be very conceivable to run a 3 mile course. But with that there, we can have a really nice course. So that's what got us pretty excited about looking at the potential of using our woods. So I don't know if that's an action item, if that's
It
something
is.
you guys are okay with.
Okay.
If you guys want to bless that, or if you have any questions or concerns, or certainly.
Well, if we're going to 8-man football, maybe you'll have a bigger cross-country team.
Well, you know what? I honestly can say we don't have one kid on that cross-country team that I think would play football. So it's been nice that.
Yeah, the goal is to add programs
right.
that build participation numbers without drawing down
Right.
from other programs. So congratulations for that. And like Ev said years ago, when he supported the development of cross-country, he goes, "My football players don't like to run." So I remember him saying that, I support cross-country. Not that hard anyways.
I guess if somebody wants to make the motion, if Kirk makes the motion to approve that, and Ryan seconds it, all those in favor?
Who made it?
Kirk made it and Ryan seconded it. Well, thank you. They'll be just so excited you wouldn't even believe it. We'll try to get some video clips of the race someday.
Good.
Okay, so,
Bunch of reports.
all
Get that
right.
drone up there and show us the course.
Yeah.
That's what you gotta do.
Well, I walked the whole thing with this, Dwayne has to explain why it's not working, because I walked and recorded it all, and
It's because I'm streaming it from, I didn't have time to actually
Okay.
download it onto
okay.
so I'm streaming it from.
Yeah, we can maybe watch it the next time, and
We can edit it down.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll count on that then. Mr. Ferget, would you like to lead us off today with middle school, high school report? If you're talking, your mic is not off yet.
we should have just waited till you.
That's just
Till we
a,
finish.
that is just a standard thing we say every time with Tim.
Yeah, that happened on Friday too, and everybody gives me a hard time about it, so I apologize. So. Maybe you want my mic off when I'm talking. I don't know. Not a whole lot. Just want to make a comment on the COVID-19 guidelines and how well our students and staff are following the safety protocols that we put in place. They're just doing an excellent job. It's good to bring them back, and I think they're happy to be here. We still work with students in regard to maybe some anxieties that they may have or worries about COVID-19. However, given the circumstances, I think they've just done a tremendous job. So that's the comment on our staff and students. Aside from the beginning of the school year's in-service last week, we had a Friday in-service again we're working on continuing to improve our methods and work to support our students with social emotional learning as well as their academics. And also we worked on the educator effectiveness. And thanks to Mrs. Moline and Mr. Groning for getting that organized. So great job there. Just kind of a heads up, or maybe this is I should get the Uncle Sam poster that says I want you, because currently in the middle high school, we have 3 substitute teachers, and one of them is in a long-term position. When we get 2 teachers out on a given day, we have to juggle things. Mrs. Groning did a great job today. Our teachers were able to promote in, but we still need people to cover the classes. So if we get 4 teachers out, we're going to really have to juggle. So if anybody feels up to it, we'd love to have you guys come in and substitute for us. So. And that's about it. I'm gonna pass now, and I'll turn off my mic. So.
Turn on your mic, Tim.
Mr. Fulsang, would you like to share out on the elementary, and is Mr. Kelly on too, or Mr. Olson on too, Mr. Grunning, or just Derek? Okay, wonderful. Well, Mr. Fulsang, we'll let you get started.
Yeah, I just want to thank the staff and the families for a good start to the school year. It's really hard for some of those parents and some of those kids to come in our building. The kids come in our building without their parents. So I think the staff's done a really good job of just welcoming kids as they come in the door and providing a safe place for them. So I hope the parents feel at ease when the kids come in the door. And then thanks to the admin staff, Karin did a good job last week of promoting EE and trying to figure out a new way to do it with Google Classrooms and kind of bringing those things together. So thanks for Karin for doing that. And thanks to the DeFlorian family for the water bottles and just all the flexibility with staff. Like Tim said, we're really going to struggle to find subs this year. And with 2 of my lovely ladies out on maternity leave, it really tightens things as subs come into our building, and we're really not finding out that the older generation, then the more mature generation doesn't really want to come back as fast as everybody else. So subs are a hot commodity right now, and if there's anybody out there that wants to help out, we need them. So that's about all I got.
Thank you, Darren.
Kelly, Mr. Olson.
All right. Well, all things considered, it's been a really, really great start to the school year. I'll echo what Tim and Derek said about everything they mentioned. Kids and staff doing a great job with their protocols, being flexible with all the changes and the new look at school. We have the same difficulty with subs. So you can pass the word to anybody you know. We will take them. We'll at least give them a shot once. We started the year with 10 students that were remote. By the end of next week, I think 5 of those students will be back. At least that's the plan right now. And it's not that our remote learning wasn't going the best. It was more the fact the parents are realizing and they're hearing from others that school overall is going pretty well. So they're planning on sending their students back. So after next week, we'll probably only have 5 remote students at Prairie View. This Wednesday, we have our anti-bullying color run. We were awarded that grant last year. We're not able to do the run in the spring, so we're going to do it this Wednesday. All students are getting a t-shirt, and we'll distance them the best we can and throw all kinds of chalk on them when they run by us. So we're looking forward to that. I guess switching gears briefly to transportation. We've had an overall pretty good start to the school year with all of our busing. I give a lot of credit to Charlie for all the effort he has done putting together the the bus lists, as well as the assigned seats for the bus. it's quite an undertaking, and we have not had to add any additional bus routes or shuttles. So, and the road construction on Highway 35 is just slowing down our buses a little bit, but they are allowing us to sneak through right on the main highway. We just have to wait for the stoplight a few times, or some, vehicles or construction vehicles on the road. So we're glad they let us burn through, and we're able to meander our way through Stoddard. So far, so good. But we're looking forward to that being done, hopefully by the first part of November.
What time's your color run, Kelly?
2 o'clock, Wednesday.
Oh, 2 o'clock during the school day then.
Yeah. Okay. Come on over if you want to show up the kids.
Yeah. I'll probably get showing up.
And I think that was a grant you wrote, Kelly, for the Children's Hospital in Milwaukee, correct?
Correct, yep.
And when COVID-19 hit, as a return courtesy, we sent 2 boxes of PPE, hand sanitizer, and disinfectant wipes that we had on hand that were hospital grade down to the hospital as a thank you for supplying such a generous grant for us, and we wanted to do something in return. So thank you for writing that grant, and I hope we've maintained a good relationship and they'll consider another grant in the future.
Hopefully so.
Mr. Boardman, you would be next.
Real.
All right, good evening, everybody. I really don't have much, just a few things. Our LED lighting got finished. They got all 3 schools done. We do have a little bit of a punch list, and we contacted them. There's just a couple of things that they have to come back and address, which are not big deals. Our dust collector in the wood shop, the motor seized up. It is junk. We cannot rebuild it, so we did order a new motor for that. And our ionizers that we've been talking about did get installed in our sick rooms for all 3 schools, so we are good to go with that. And I'd just like to pass on, like everybody else, everybody staff-wise, amazing job helping out. In the beginning of this, I didn't know if our staff would be able to handle it, but with everybody jumping in and everything, it's been amazing, and everybody's doing a great job, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Guy. I think that it's important that everyone know that the custodian and maintenance are cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting, as we have students who are ill or not feeling well for whatever reason that we normally have. They're following through with extra disinfecting and cleaning of all the areas, doing a tremendous job, and our teachers are disinfecting all the high-touch areas, tables, desks, and chairs, as students transition in and out of their rooms. So it's been exceptional. I know you've been working on the football field as well, and getting that ready for games that we're hoping to have. So I thank you for all of that. And additionally, it sounds like we're not doing a lot, and I think you and Jackie and your custodial crews have just been working nonstop and around the clock. We also have a couple of high school students who are helping too, right?
That is correct. We have Austin Faulkner and Gage Kennedy been helping us out with things during the day and that, and they've been doing a great job. It's nice to have an extra hand and somebody that's willing to jump in and help.
They've done so well that when we were short a custodian one evening, they got hired up to work with Derek. So that was, very great work experience for them, but also a tribute to how seriously they've been taking their position. So thank you, Guy, for everything. Great leadership. You and Jackie have done a tremendous job to get the schools ready and to keep them clean and sanitized. I also want to mention that once we learned that we had a COVID positive student, even though we didn't have school on Friday and our normal disinfecting and cleaning was done, Guy, I think you came in and you went over all the areas where that student had been in, the different classrooms and stuff, and disinfected one more time so that we would be good to go on Monday and help alleviate any possible concerns or fears. So I really, really appreciate that you went that extra mile over the weekend.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, and the football field looks great.
Betsy isn't joining us tonight, but I would want to mention that for any of our remote learners, including those students who have been contact traced and are home, that they are welcome to food. And so their families should contact Betsy or their schools, and we will be able to line up the opportunity for them to pick up food for Monday through Friday breakfasts and lunches. So she wants everyone to know that, and we will continue to feed our students wherever they're learning. Okay, Mr. Grunning, any technology report from you?
I'll confirm what the rest of the team has been saying. The staff has been really amazing. It's fun to watch the plan come into play. You've got teachers teaching students in the classroom simultaneously with kids that are remoting in on a meeting exactly the way you're seeing it here. And it just seems to be seamless. We've also had 2 teachers that are remoting in to teach with the students that are in the classroom with kids that are remoting in. I mean, it's just, the way it's all coming together is actually kind of fun to watch. And credit goes not only to the staff, but the students as well. I mean, they've all really just kind of hunkered down and they're doing what needs to be done, and it's impressive to watch. It really is.
Well, thank you for all the technology and things that you put in place to make that happen as well. And really, Derek and Kelly's offer out to everyone on the board or in the community. We are looking for people to sit in classrooms. We have highly qualified teachers. If they are remoting in for teaching, then as long as we have adult supervision in our classrooms at the middle and high school, we are able to continue to offer those classes without a substitute teacher who's a licensed substitute in the room. So we need that adult supervision. So people are welcome to contact us if they're interested. At the elementary levels, I'll let Mrs. Moline explain a little bit more, but those are both title schools and come with potentially some different requirements. So we'll move right into Mrs. Moline's report, and maybe she can add to that in case I have misspoken.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I will echo what everyone else has shared out, that it's really been a great first several weeks here to the school year. And one of my favorite statements from a high school student was, Mrs. Moline, it's just great to be here. And that's truly how we're all feeling. In addition to the staff stepping up and making a seamless transition. Again, shout out to Mr. Groning for making remote learning not only happen for our students, but even staff, even specialists that aren't able to be here in person have been able to remote in, which has still provided exceptional services to our students from no matter where our staff are at. So that's been a truly amazing experience for us to see and evolve, and something I probably couldn't have envisioned happening 10 years ago, but it really has worked well. As Mrs. Groning was alluding to, and the other principals, yes, we're looking for substitutes, but I'm definitely looking for substitutes that are specialized, highly qualified, and have certifications. So part of the reason for that is, of course, the 20% that Diane was talking about earlier when she talked about the 80% of the funding. The other 20% comes with a lot of stipulations that are good. It's to make sure that we have our staff that's highly qualified and in appropriate license areas. So we'll continue to work towards that and finding the right people for that. The state, just a reminder, does have that relatively new area of certification for a short-term substitute. So if you have a 2-year associate's degree and our school district is in need of substitutes, we're able to provide a training to ensure that you're highly qualified and submit the proper professional development training with the paperwork to the Department of Public Instruction. So we've had a lot of people that have taken advantage of that, including some of our own paraprofessionals with associate's degrees, so that in-house and internally we're able to help out in situations when needed too. So please take that into consideration for other people in the community that might be listening. So there's a lot has happened here in the last couple of weeks, so I kind of fortunately have a lot to report on for everyone. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. but some really exciting things too. In Title I at Stoddard, we of course have one teacher out on maternity leave with twins, so that's been an exciting news release here. In addition, we have worked towards filling that position with a highly qualified person that also not only meets the certifications, but also meets our rigorous application process and our teaching component and interview process. We want the best fit in the position so that our students can receive the best instruction. With all that being said, thank you to Mr. Fulsing for helping to coordinate all these things with myself. And at this time, the recommendation is to hire short-term substitutes for those positions. So Natalie, who is the recommendation for the kindergarten long-term, would be co-sharing or job sharing this Title I position with Craig Peterson at Stoddard. Again, those two will be the best people in those positions in order to meet our needs of our Title I students in our school-wide schools. We're still looking at Title I. We have PALS, which is our early learning and literacy. Again, that goes 4K all the way through grade 2. We've rolled that over, and thanks to Nikki Agnew, who's assisted myself in getting that up and running for our learners this week and our teachers to get started with. Of course, Mr. Grani for the STAR reading and math assessment, as that was completed last Thursday. And then Fontes and Pinnell, which our teachers are still currently undergoing, and we've shared out some other examples on how to use those resources, which are limited resources of books, while using barriers and things like that, so our students don't have to touch them and that they are ready to be put back in place right away for another assessment for students. And with all of that assessment data starting to roll in, we're excited to continue to not only learn where our students are at after virtual instruction and where we need to proceed in our next step in their educational process. As you heard me talk a little bit about Craig Peterson, with our Title I at Stoddard for right now, our goal is we're continuing to review all of our funds coming in for Title. The current plan is for Title Math to be on hold, at least till when that position is, short-term substitute position is completed, and also that we can secure the appropriate funding. Mr. Grani is welcome to comment on any of this, but at elementary level through grade 3, so up until a 4th grade level, we've implemented Freckle this year for an online learning component, which is definitely supported through our title funding as well. And then IXL starts 4th grade and up, and that goes through the middle school level. Previously, we were using IXL down to the lower grade levels, so we're excited about implementing some different resources for our students too that is online. Continuing a little bit more in Title I is that as I was entering federal budget, so in order for us to secure our preliminary budget, the process starts that I design budgets for Title I, II, for public and private. And then, of course, Title III, we are a part of a consortium with CISA 4 for English language learners through Title III. So as part of this process, our Title I has criteria for low income, which we use our free and reduced school lunch enrollment for, and our school enrollment. Our school does obviously have less than 1,000 students, so we have some exemptions within that. But if any particular school meets a certain amount of threshold for free and reduced lunch, they're automatically expected to be part of a Title I school that's receiving services. While this year our virtual charter school enrollment is a little bit different, and it also has our own students from our resident district that are also receiving some services in schooling, or they're schooling through that particular school. As a result, the virtual charter school met that threshold this year, and we were basically kind of stuck in this position where the state requires us to service them. As we looked at that, Mrs. Donning and I had some discussion, and we reached out to our Title I consultant from the Department of Public Instruction for some advice as well as considerations. because our virtual charter school already has a lot of things in place that students are receiving. One is that the school receives, of course, state and local funding, which adequately serves the students because they have individualized academic programs, as well as a teacher for each core content area, which is directly assigned to them. In addition to that academic mentor, as well as an instructor and the virtual charter school director, or whether it's Scott Kelly or Melanie Aspenson. So as a result, we felt that it's essential for our school-wide schools to be able to continue, because this doesn't increase any of the funding allocations that we receive through Title I. So our class sizes could obviously be impacted, as well as decreased interventions if we lost those supports at our school-wide buildings, which is Stoddard and Prairie View. I submitted a request to have an exemption for this school, being how the enrollment is obviously much lower, but the amount of students who qualified for free and reduced lunch was higher. So we were granted that actually today, so we're really excited to continue with school-wide school programs and continue still servicing our virtual charter school students in the best way possible with all the great services that they already receive. Is there any questions about that? Okay. All right, well then we'll move on. I want to share out a little bit about what we did at our latest in-service. I'm going to just do a quick screen share. So as a crisis prevention instructor for our school district, I'm not really sure why it's, oh, there we go. Perfect. As a crisis prevention institute instructor for our school district, we did just a little bit of a refresher. Reminder that our goal always, as all school employees, is to provide the best care, welfare, safety, and security for all of our students, staff, community members that may be in our environment, and any person within our building. So we reviewed a little bit in about that. In addition, we talked about the crisis development model, where what our staff does, our attitudes and approaches impacts everything from a person who maybe has feeling a little bit of an anxiety, in addition to someone that maybe is feeling a little bit escalated. So we reviewed this in regards to continuing to de-escalate, but more so to prevent that by building quality relationships and establishing rapport with individuals that's under our care throughout the day. We talked a little bit about precipitating factors, that students come to school with a variety of things in their backpack that aren't necessarily packed there on purpose, and that we really need to take into account those things, and that that our staff has little to no control over those, and that we want to continue to best meet their needs. Maybe they came to school hungry because they were woke up late. That was an example. So how can we best help those students through that? And then we watched a few little video clips and scenarios talking about verbal interventions and how to de-escalate while we're still providing best care, safety, and security, as well as situational awareness, who might have the best relationship with that student, when to call in a support strategies and a crisis prevention team, and when maybe we're the staff that's involved with that situation and that we should step away and let someone else come in to assist, so that it's just a fresh set of eyes and a fresh start for that student. So just a little bit of an overview, and then we always talk about Act 125 and the state requirements, in which we report out all the information to you on behalf of the school board, and that our safety interventions and team responses of a physical intervention is a last resort. And that would be only if the student is unsafe to themselves or others around them. And last but not least, about debriefing, as debriefing is a new requirement. We've always had the requirement in place through CPI, but it's part of the state requirement that we definitely need to have those meetings to discuss how we can better service the student. So that's just a brief look at a little bit about the CPI. That's really an important part of who we are as a school district as we move forward. And then moving on to the next component of staff in service this last Friday. And I apologize, there's quite a bit to talk about here, but we'll try and keep it as brief as possible like the last one. Educator effectiveness. So again, thank you to Mr. Groning. We kind of started a discussion, actually, Mrs. Groning and I, about how our educator effectiveness system, we really like how it's set up and the fact that it was using some type of platform alternative from what the state had originally offered, which was Frontline. And our concerns with using a Google shared drive was it just wasn't as clean and as organized as we thought that it originally could and should be. On behalf of Mr. Groning, we had created an educator effectiveness Google account, and that account looked great because I was able to organize everything in it. And then when all of the teachers' files were shared out to each of the administrators or their evaluators, it just got really messy in that keeping it organized. So a lot of discussion happened, and Mr. Groning came up with the idea that we could go to a Google Classroom. That's what our teachers are already using this year in particular with all of the virtual instruction. So we could use a Google Classroom and kind of mimic what they're doing in this way and keep things much more organized. So I'd like to thank Mr. Groning who set all of that up and made it very easy for me to roll all this out without having to stay up, till 3, 4 in the morning the night before or the morning of to make it happen. So thank you to him. Just a reminder, why we do educator effectiveness. It's part of the state statute, but really it's to support our educators, what they're doing, as well as our school and district visions, missions, and our goals. We'd like to continue working on those student outcomes that are paired with quality teacher instruction, because the number one thing that impacts our learner outcomes is the teacher. So we just visit about that, and always our goal is to make sure our students are career and or college ready. And then we talked about just classroom observation and collection of evidence. Ongoing feedback is one of the most valuable processes for educators as we grow professionally. And again, the same process is mimicked for the principals. So teachers have the same process as the principal, just a little bit different setup in the forms. This is what the process actually looks like for the teacher. So if you're in a supporting year, these are the following documents that you need to have. An artifact typically supports all of the Danielson framework, which our school district supports, that particular components that the Danielson framework has set up. And then obviously observation, evidence, and collection. Our professional practice goal, our student learning objective. And this year, because of all of our virtual instruction, we've really targeted those areas for a supporting year as well as a summer year. In a summer year, we just have a few other pieces that go into play, which includes teacher reflections and administrator evaluations. So the people that are involved in a summer year are teachers that are in our district for the first 3 years. So their first, second, and third year are all part of a summer year. And then they go into a 3-year rotation basis. So if it's your third year, you would go into another summer year. Otherwise, the other 2 years, you're in a supporting year. Moving forward, we visit about what it looks like to write a quality student learning objective, and if you're a principal, quality school learning objective, as we really want to focus on academic growth, and also including in that this year some type of virtual component. So is it that they're using an online platform to help support their academic growth, and then as a result, their professional learning maybe needs to include something on that avenue. And then, of course, our SMART goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, because we want our students to achieve and our teachers to really set that bar high, but they also need to be, manageable and attainable. So I won't go into all those details about what it exactly means to be smart, because we've gone over this before. But again, then our professional practice goal, or our PPG, is going to focus on that educator effectiveness, plan, do, study, and act. And an example that we tied back for the elementary was they took a significant amount of time looking at different science resources, and they did a lot of planning, and now they're kind of in that do and study and act component, in which now they need to put into place. So some of them maybe will be looking at that for even their professional practice goals. And just kind of a wrap up that it's in Google Classroom this year, and we're excited to be focusing on virtual instruction and how our learners can continue to make those same goals that we've focused on previously, that our district has for visions and missions, but in a different way. And of course, teacher evidence, self-review, SLOs, and PPGs are all included. And I'll just also share out, in the past, the board has supported not only educator effectiveness, it's gone along with a stipend and some type of a pay increase as a result of not only completing it, but successfully completing it, so that they've met their goals. So I just have a couple of other things to report out, but that was the district in service, the portions that I had a significant role in, so I'd like to share that. In addition, special education has been really busy. I've had probably over 30 meetings. I kind of lost exact count, which I normally do, but we've had over 30 meetings since our last school board meeting, and mostly starting from in-service time on, to discuss options of virtual, remote, or in-person learning, and how to best share information with those families, how to best meet the needs of each of those learners, and what it may look like, and that we can write in their IEP to not only make it a safe place for them to be, but best place for them educationally. So that's been great working with families, and I can't express how wonderful families and they have been to being not only receptive, but also sharing input and ideas, and being open to new ways of delivering education. Also, since our last school board meeting, I've had 3 504 meetings, and I've attended a school-based services training with Cora Gianoli, which we work through to get funding reimbursement for medical type billable services. And of course, I always spoke a little bit about budgets, including those preliminary Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and then IDEA flow through with special education and preschool budgets. They are all designed to best meet our current students' needs with the allocated resources in which we have available. We will be getting some carryover money, which we have varying amounts of time to spend that out, in varying amounts of money. For example, Title I only will allow a certain percentage of carryover, where IDEA flow through, you can carry it over for 27 months. So I'll be working at spending that out here over the upcoming months. And this upcoming week, actually on Wednesday, I'll be working with our consultants from DPI on not only our CARES funding, but GEARS, which is something new in addition to the CARES, which are all part of the rollout from the pandemic, as that is all part of the federal and state funding, which all get submitted through WISE grants. So sorry, a lot of information to share. It's been a busy place. We're really excited to be back, and everything's going really smoothly. And we're glad that we can continue working on the work that we've started before all this happened last year.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mullane. As always, it's your passion for what you do, the work you do for staff as well as students and their families is really something that we lose count of how much time goes into what you do. So thank you so very much, because it certainly is evident in every report you give. I would just like to share out that last month I had mentioned we wouldn't be using the locker rooms for showering. A few days after the school board meeting, different guidance was released that supported the use of locker rooms with physical distancing and minimizing the number of students who are in those locker room areas. And so we reinstituted showering in the locker rooms. That's one of the things that we have found is that guidance and information can change from week to week and from provider to provider. The other thing I'd like to mention is that when we did have this weekend the need to use School Messenger to get school messengers out by email, text messages to families, it's important for families to remember that they won't get those messages if they have changed their email address or changed their phone number and that isn't updated in our system. So one of the ways that family could get that updated came when we sent out all the registration packets because there was a parent contact information update form. Those forms have come back to the schools and the secretaries have used those forms to update that information. But unfortunately, we know that there are parents who did not submit the return forms. And so when the messages go out, like they did this weekend, some people didn't receive them. And what we found is that there are new email addresses and new phone numbers. And as parents have called with the concern, we've gone through that and made those changes. But I would like to also mention that all of those informational updates are put up on our website. So parents can go there as frequently as they'd like to check and see what new information has been posted. So please, 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 if you aren't sure if your information is current or you haven't signed up for School Messenger, you can contact the school office or you can go onto our website under the Parent tab and the School Messenger, how to sign up for it information is there as well. I have a brief follow-up also on the training. We like our board and our community and our parents to know that every year we go through ALICE training that is to prepare our staff to respond to an intruder in our schools. We reviewed with our staff history of incidents, profiles of someone who might be an intruder, the importance of knowing your students, your school, your community, the community partnerships that we have. I'm sure the board members remember and maybe the community remembers that we have been a site at each one of our school buildings for training that have involved multiple emergency responders from 2 states and multiple counties. We welcome the opportunity for any emergency personnel to come into any of our buildings because we know if there's a real emergency, the more familiar they are with our buildings, the more likely they are to help us as quickly and efficiently and effectively as possible. So we also talked about the ALICE tactics. We did a building by building PA telephone system drill and talked about district training. How we know our students are through youth behavior surveys. Tell us about yourself surveys that teachers do. WISE data, which has information on students and their education, income, if they have special education services, any dropout early warning signs, and we're paying attention to that because we know COVID has kind of resulted in kids becoming disfranchised from their schools, and we want to make sure that they feel welcome and cared for, whether they're in our building or doing remote learning or through our charter school. Any system supports, mental health supports, and food and shelter supports. The community partnerships are multiples throughout our county as well as our neighboring county, Crawford, and through the La Crosse system. And again, especially with our Vernon County Sheriff's Department that offers safety and support training. ALICE stands for A, alert, L is lockdown, I is inform, C is counter, and E is evacuate. It is not a linear process. In the time of an emergency, teachers may assess the situation and go right to evacuate. It depends on what is going on. The training was very extensive, but I would also just like to remind the school board and the community of the trainings we have. Trauma-informed care, ACEs, mental health first aid, CPI, crisis prevention intervention, with Mrs. Moline just went through. We have our coaches and advisors who are CPR, AED, and first aid trained, and we do have an instructor on staff with Garrett Redmond. Our DOJ safety grants are round 1 and our round 2, and we were also the whole school for the adolescent mental health training, of which 7 of our staff went through that training. We have staff from all 3 buildings that took threat assessment training. As you know, this past year, we provided that second entrance to Prairie View, so we have a secure double main entrance. Additional security cameras have been placed at all of our buildings and outside locations, and other security devices that are used in the classrooms or the offices, such as our night locks that can be placed into the door frame right below the door into the ground, and can handle up to 1,000 pounds of pressure on the other side of the door. So any intruder trying to push that door open with that night lock in place, they've got to have 1,000 pounds of pressure before they're going to be able to move that door. DPI mandated trainings, gatekeeper training, and suicide prevention, mandatory reporting of child abuse and neglect, reporting of threats of school violence, bloodborne pathogens, physical restraint, medication administration. We have many students who take a variety of medications, so those who are distributing that medication or administering it must go through the trainings for those specific medications. Our school safety plan, the review, drills, and evaluation, and student records and confidentiality. That would be the end of my report.
Anybody else have one?
Well, I
Can't
think
see that. Where's Chuck?
It's in
Oh, yep, that would be
correspondence.
correspondence. But go ahead and mention it,
Okay,
please.
that's the next
It's a
item on the
good thing.
agenda. That's all right. So we're all good? Everybody's giving the reports? So the next item is, thank you for all those reports, by the way. Next item is correspondence.
Oh, you want to lead off with that one?
Just
Okay.
ask about it.
Well, the new Vernon Communication provides capital credits to
Nice job.
school districts that receive their services. We are one. So from 2000 to 2002, the check we will receive is $7,205.10. That's just a really nice bonus to get that.
Another 18 years beyond.
That'll affect our fund balance.
I will take it. It's a positive. It's not a bill. And then also in your package, some borer samples were taken around the football field area, and there's information on that in your packet as well. And outside of that, I think that's it.
Okay. How about items for the October 26th, 2020 board meeting? Anybody? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn. Kevin makes the motion and Kirk seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Get her down, Dwayne.
Time is